Three empires built infrastructure that conquered the world. Then, the maintenance bills destroyed them. It is a specific, recurring economic suicide pact that has played out 3 times in history with mathematical precision. And right now, the world's second largest economy isn't just flirting with this disaster, it has committed $1 trillion to it. This is the infrastructure trap. It is the story of how an asset becomes a liability, how the very roads and rails that build an empire eventually bankrupt it, and why the specific economic indicators flashing red in Beijing right now match the exact indicators that flashed in London in 1847 and in Rome in the 3rd century. Most historians look at political decisions or wars to explain the fall of superpowers. They are looking in the wrong place. They should be looking at the maintenance ledgers. The pattern is deceptively simple and devastatingly effective. It starts with a boom that looks like genius, transitions into a maintenance obligation that looks like a burden, and ends in a debt spiral that looks like a collapse. The Roman road network maintained an empire, then bankrupted it. The British railway boom created the modern world, then triggered the debt crisis of the 1840s. The American interstate system built global dominance and now sits on a $1 trillion repair backlog that cannot be paid without printing money. And today, China's Belt and Road Initiative is following this exact same pattern, stage by stage, decision by decision, almost like they are reading from the same script that led to ruin every single time before. We are watching the largest capital misallocation in human history, and we know exactly how it ends because we have the receipts from the last 3 times it happened. To understand why China's $1 trillion gamble is mathematically doomed, you first have to look at the blueprint. You have to look at Rome, specifically the Roman Empire between 27 BC and 180 AD. This is the clearest example of the trap in its purest form. At its peak, Rome didn't just have an army, it had a network, the Via Romani, 50,000 miles of paved roads, 250,000 miles of total pathways. It was an engineering marvel that connected Scotland to Syria, allowing legions to march 20 miles a day in any weather. But here is the number that matters. To build the Appian Way, it cost the equivalent of $2 million per mile in modern currency.
The return on investment in the early days was staggering. Trade flowed, taxes were collected, the empire expanded. This was stage 1, the strategic blueprint. But infrastructure does not sleep. It decays. By the 3rd century, the expansion had stopped, but the weather hadn't. The roads required constant repaving, bridge repairs, and security garrisons. The cost of maintaining 50,000 miles of stone roads didn't generate new wealth, it merely preserved the status quo. This is the turning point. Rome faced a choice: raise taxes on an already overtaxed peasantry to fix the roads, or let the empire crumble. They chose a third option, the one every dying empire chooses. They debased the currency to pay the bills. In the time of Augustus, the silver denarius was 95% pure silver. By 268 AD, the silver content had dropped to 0.5%. They printed money to pave roads. The infrastructure that built the empire became the stone around its neck. The hyperinflation that followed didn't just crack the pavement, it cracked the society. The legions couldn't be paid. The roads fell into disrepair, becoming bandit corridors rather than trade routes. The greatest asset of the ancient world became its greatest liability. The empire didn't collapse because of barbarians. The barbarians just walked in over roads Rome could no longer afford to defend or repair. Fast forward 1600 years. The technology changed, but the pattern remained identical. 1840s Britain, the railway mania. This is the acceleration of the trap. In the mid-19th century, Britain was the workshop of the world, and the steam engine was its beating heart. Between 1844 and 1846, Britain authorized the construction of 9,500 miles of new railways. To put that in perspective, the capital investment authorized for these railways was more than double the entire military budget of the British Empire. Investors went mad. It was a speculative fever dream. Shares in the Great Western Railway or the London and Midland Line were seen as golden tickets. This was stage 2. The golden age of expansion. Parliament passed hundreds of railway bills a year. In 1845 alone, the projected cost of new lines was nearly £600 million. In today's money, that is an investment roughly equal to the entire GDP of a small European nation committed in 12 months. But they forgot the pattern. They built lines to nowhere.
They built duplicate lines competing for the same freight. And then the bills came due. The turning point hit in 1847. The revenue from these lines couldn't cover the interest payments on the debt used to build them, let alone the maintenance of the tracks and the engines. The Bank of England had to step in. Interest rates spiked. The asset bubble burst. Families who had put their life savings into guaranteed railway shares were wiped out overnight. The railway king, George Hudson, was disgraced. The tracks remained, but the capital was incinerated. It was a debt crisis that shook the foundations of Victorian finance. The infrastructure was built, yes, but at a cost that crippled the investment capacity of the empire for a decade. They had built a machine they couldn't afford to fuel. Then we arrive at the third case study, the one we are living inside right now, the United States of America, the interstate highway system. 1956, President Eisenhower signs the Federal Aid Highway Act. The goal was defense and commerce, 46,876 miles of expressway. It was the greatest public works project in history. It created the American middle class. Suburbs, trucking logistics, the entire layout of modern America exists because of this project. The initial price tag was $25 billion. In the end, it cost $129 billion. But the construction cost is irrelevant. It's the maintenance that kills you. The Highway Trust Fund was established to pay for it through a gas tax. That worked when the roads were new, and the maintenance was zero. But concrete has a lifespan. Bridges have a lifespan. We are now deep in stage 3 of the pattern. The American Society of Civil Engineers gives U.S. infrastructure a D+ rating. The backlog for repairs is not in the billions, it is in the trillions. We have 45,000 bridges classified as structurally deficient. The federal gas tax hasn't been raised since 1993. The purchasing power of that revenue has collapsed, while the cost of asphalt and labor has skyrocketed. The U.S. is now borrowing money to patch potholes. The economic multiplier of the interstate system has been exhausted. We are now paying the rent on the past. The asset is deteriorating faster than we can fund the repairs, creating a drag on the entire economy that creates congestion, damages vehicles, and slows down logistics. We built a mansion, and now we can't afford the roof repairs.
This brings us to the pattern framework. We need to define this rigorously, because what comes next regarding China will terrify you. This is the 5-stage infrastructure trap. Stage 1 is the strategic need. The empire identifies a bottleneck: troop movement for Rome, coal transport for Britain, logistics for America, and commits to a massive build. The ROI is high. Everyone celebrates. Stage 2 is the overbuild. Success breeds hubris. The project expands beyond utility into vanity. You stop building roads where they are needed and start building them where they look impressive. Economic distortions appear. Corruption rises. Stage 3 is the maintenance cliff. The initial warranties expire. The first generation of repairs comes due simultaneously. The revenue generated by the infrastructure levels off, but the cost to keep it operational begins to compound vertically. Stage 4 is the debt spiral. The empire borrows money to pay for maintenance. They insist the infrastructure is an asset on the balance sheet, even though it is cash flow negative. They start cooking the books. Stage 5 is systemic insolvency. The maintenance burden exceeds the economy's ability to pay. The infrastructure fails. The economy contracts. The empire retreats. Rome completed all 5 stages. Britain survived stage 4 only by pivoting its entire economy. The US is currently drowning in stage 3, staring down the barrel of stage 4. And that brings us to China. Check the stages. China isn't approaching the pattern. They are speedrunning it. Since 2008, China has poured concrete at a rate that defies logic. Between 2011 and 2013, China used more cement than the United States used in the entire 20th century. Read that again. In 3 years, they poured more concrete than America did in 100 years. They have built 45,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. That is more than the rest of the world combined. They have built ghost cities, massive airports, and bridges that span empty canyons.
This is the Belt and Road Initiative, and it is the textbook definition of Stage 2 shifting violently into Stage 3. The China State Railway Group is not a profitable enterprise. It is a debt monster. It currently owes over $900 billion. That is nearly $1 trillion of debt for a single railway operator. To service this debt, they are reliant on ticket sales that do not cover the operating costs, let alone the principal.
But the trap is deeper here. China didn't just build internally, they exported the trap. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, they lent hundreds of billions to countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Kenya to build ports and railways. These projects are failing. The port of Hambantota in Sri Lanka couldn't pay its debts, so China seized it. That looks like a win for China, but it's not. It's a liability. Now China owns a port that loses money in a country that is bankrupt. Look at the data from the past 24 months. The cracks are not just in the concrete, they are in the ledger. Evergrande, Country Garden. These massive property developers didn't just fail because of bad management. They failed because the infrastructure-led growth model hit the mathematical wall. China has built housing for 3 billion people. They have a population of 1.4 billion, and that population is shrinking. This is the mechanism of the final collapse, and it is happening now. You cannot maintain infrastructure for a population that doesn't exist. If you build a high-speed rail line that requires 10 million passengers a year to break even, and your demographics say you will only have 5 million passengers, you don't have a railway, you have a prison, a financial prison. China is currently in Stage 4, the debt spiral. Local governments in China are sitting on an estimated $10 trillion of hidden debt, mostly tied to local government financing vehicles used to build infrastructure. They are borrowing money to pay the interest on the money they borrowed to build roads that no one drives on. It is the Roman denarius debasement, digitized. The future projection is grim. When Stage 4 fails, it doesn't decline gracefully. It collapses quickly and brutally. The maintenance bills for the Belt and Road projects are coming due right as the global cost of capital is rising. We are already seeing the early warning signs. We are seeing deferred maintenance across the Chinese interior. We are seeing bridges collapse not from age but from shoddy construction and lack of upkeep. We are seeing protests in Chinese cities because the local bus services are stopping. Why? Because the local governments ran out of money servicing the debt on the subways. The mechanism of collapse will be a cascade of defaults.
One massive infrastructure developer misses a payment, which freezes the credit markets, which stops the construction, which spikes unemployment, which lowers tax revenue, which makes the maintenance even harder to pay for. It is a feedback loop from hell. There is always an argument for exceptionalism. You will hear analysts say, China is different. The state controls the banks. They can just roll over the debt forever. That is exactly what they said in Rome. The emperor controls the mint. That is exactly what they said in London. The Bank of England is the center of the world. That is exactly what they said in 1929 and 2008. The math does not care about your political system. The math says that if you spend $1 to create an asset that costs $2 to maintain, you are going to go broke. It is not a matter of ideology. It is a matter of arithmetic. 3 times it happened before. The pattern says we are next. Rome lasted centuries before the road costs killed them. Britain lasted decades. China has compressed the cycle into 20 years. The acceleration is terrifying. Maybe they have 5 years before the debt creates a systemic seizure. Maybe they have 10. But the sheer mass of concrete they have poured guarantees that the maintenance bill will be the largest financial obligation in the history of human civilization. Here is what you need to understand. When the second largest economy on Earth hits the wall of Stage 5, the shockwave doesn't stop at the border. It hits your 401k, it hits global supply chains, it hits the value of the dollar. We are watching a slow-motion train wreck involving a train that cost $1 trillion. Don't look at the ribbon-cutting ceremonies. Don't look at the gleaming new stations. Look at the rust. Look at the debt service ratios. Look at the empty seats. That is where the truth is. The infrastructure trap has snapped shut, and now we are just waiting for the history books to tally the damage.